Well, whether it was the World Series of 1989 or when interleague play began across baseball in 1997, whenever the A's and Giants got together, it was always special, entertaining, and meaningful for our communities here in Northern California. But what you're about to witness today is historical. It's the end of Oakland versus San Francisco. Yes, it is the A's and Giants, but obviously Oakland playing their final games down the stretch here of baseball in the East Bay at the Coliseum. And that is how we begin pregame live in our studios. Brody Brazil with Dave Stewart. I know this is a pregame show, but quite honestly, the result of today's game, and I know the A's are playing well and the Giants are struggling, to me, it's actually less about the game. This is more about the Bay Area community realizing something historic happening today, the end of something.
You're right. It's the end of an era, true end of an era. These two teams, San Francisco coming here from New York, the A's being a team that was relocated from Kansas City in '68. And the true balance of both sides of the Bay, having great baseball teams, great legacy, great players that have come through both organizations. And now at this time, in my opinion, one of the best traditions in baseball is about to relocate someplace else. And
it's not even like the football Bay Area rivalry exists anymore either. The Raiders are in Las Vegas, and the 49ers have moved down south to Santa Clara. So San Francisco versus Oakland in terms of major main professional sports comes to a conclusion at the end of today's baseball game. I don't know, Dallas, I said this at the beginning of our show. This is a pre-game show, and I realize there's a series to be decided, and the Giants need every single win they can get, and obviously the A's have turned things around, but today is less about, I think, an actual game happening at the Coliseum. Today is more of an experience and a vibe and a piece of history happening today at the Coliseum, and all three of us being Northern California and Bay Area people, how do you feel about this?
Well, Brody, I can tell you that the vibe is absolutely different, and I think that's fair to say, and it's understandable. I spent some time this morning just cruising around the parking lot, cruising around the tailgates. I may or may not have had a wiffle ball bat and wiffle balls in my hand. We may have not gotten some swings and misses today, but the smiles and the hugs, the handshakes, the tears, that's what I wanted to feel. And there's 35,000 plus people in the ballpark yesterday and today. And Brody, why I have called our fans the Spartans of Major League Baseball is because I would take any 300 of them and put them up against any capacity-filled stadium across baseball. And I got the green and gold coming out on top every time. And I think with as many people that are here in the ballpark, the emotion you feel might not feel like 35,000, might not sound like 35,000, but I think that's because there's a lot of folks taking their individual trips down memory lane. And as you said, Brody, there's a baseball game happening, but I think there's healing, there's understanding, and there's a lot of love going on as well. And that sounds just a little different at the ballpark.
Stu, somebody said this on social media, that they would trade the '89 World Series for the A's continuing to play baseball in Oakland. If that were a trade to be made, you being a big part of that, would you go back and sell your soul for '89 to keep the A's here?
I would do that
for the rest of your life?
I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat. I grew up in this ballpark from game one, and it was crazy. Yesterday at the festivities yesterday, there was a man that came up to me and asked me to sign a ball that told me he was at the very first A's game. And I told him I was at the very first A's game, and we took a photo together, and he talked about, Catfish Hunter and Vita Blue and Ramon Webster, of all names, who was one of the original Oakland A's players here at the Coliseum. And we took a photo together, and he literally had a tear in his eye because this is going away. This is it. The Giants and A's as Oakland A's. This is it. It's all over.
It's just a realization, Dallas. It makes me think about first times to the Coliseum. You probably remember your first time to the Coliseum.
Brody, it's a moment that you don't, I think, forget. And if you have the opportunity tap back in and take that trip down memory lane. I think that's what a lot of folks are doing right now, and that's why it's as special as it is. And I think bittersweet's a great way to sort of categorize and identify the emotion that's going on. But I think the ballpark has always been a place where folks come to get away, come to heal, and there's a lot of that going on right now. And I'm just glad that I'm able to share these moments and these emotions with fellas like you who've been a big part of what we have going on here.
You know, it's amazing. We're not even at that last game overall yet, but today feels like the end of a certain something. So we'll try and hold it together today. Dallas, have a great call. Really appreciate your insights on this, too. Yeah, it's just it's a tough one. This game is really a tough one. And on a weekend full of emotions, yesterday the A's, I guess you could call it their final Oakland induction for the team's Hall of Fame, which we understand will continue to Sacramento and beyond, wherever they end up. Jose, Miguel, Steiny, the great Bill King, Eddie Williams, and Eddie Yost all getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. And Stu, I mean, you were there obviously on the field, and probably more emotion than anybody would have expected.
I mean, I can't speak for, you know, Dick Williams and Jost, and I can actually talk about Bill King, but the guys that were on the field, and this guy especially, Miguel Tejada, I remember him being in our minor league system at Instructional League. When I retired that year, Sandy said, go back to our minor leagues and look at these guys and know your organization. And Miguel Tejada was one of the first players I met. And even then, in Instructional League as a young player, he said he was going to be a major leaguer and be impactful. Terry Steinbach was my battery mate. This is a guy that, you know, he will say, I mean, obviously, Carney Lansford was the biggest influence on him. But he will also say that Bobby Welch and I were big influences on him, learning how to call a baseball game and what to do in situations, when to make mound visits, how to manage a pitching staff. You can't pick a better guy than Terry Steinbach. And Carney said it yesterday. You can't pick a better person. He's just a quality individual. And then Jose Canseco, probably the biggest surprise of all. This is a guy that you can tell that maturity has taken place with him. And he used the word regrets a lot yesterday, and he's used the words regrets a lot recently. And he's just a totally different individual. He was tearful yesterday in being honored. And I got to be honest, he got me. That's for darn sure. I was tearful too, man. But he deserves it. He was a big part of everything that we've done here in Oakland, and it was just a great day with those guys.